G'day guys, welcome to another episode of COVID Convos where we speak with real people about what wellbeing looks like in a pandemic. My name's Justin Griggs or Griggsy, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts. Kesh, all going well, mate?
Yeah, man, doing all right.
Excellent. And Simon?
All good here, Griggsy. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, really good. Actually, I didn't mention it to you guys, but my my niece was born this morning at 6:30 a.m. So
Hey,
congratulations to
Awesome.
congratulations to my sister-in-law Amelie and brother-in-law Anthony on their arrival. So really excited by that, but obviously some challenging times with not being able to visit them. Anyway, that's another story. We're very pleased to have, and I'll see if I can get his name right, Philibert Vandersleyen. Did I get that right, mate?
Well done, well done. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. And I was going to say, we'll just maybe refer to you as Phil in a really Aussie, keeping the Aussie spirit of this show. Phil, how are you? Firstly, do you want to start by explaining a little bit about yourself so that guests can understand where you're coming to us from and a little bit about you?
All right. So I'm Belgian. I'm a PE teacher. I'm now working as a head of PE and athletic director for an international school in Shanghai. So my background, I started really early with sport, with martial art actually, and that's actually what gave me the passion of teaching. So really early I was in a national team for that martial arts, and then it was natural to start studying first physiotherapy and then physical education. So I was a physical education teacher, and then I did an extra master in sport management in the UK. After teaching for a while, I had a go at management, which was not really my interest in the end. I had a really nice stop at the UN at one point for the Office for Sport, Development and Peace. So all the way actually to link sport with development. So how to use sport as a vector for development. And after that, I went back to teaching, which was clearly my passion. So I just had to do that kind of travel in and out the industry to see that actually teaching kids was something I was made for. And after spending some years in an international school in Belgium, I decided to leave, and I had different choices there. I could choose Spain, Los Angeles, or China, and I chose the most exotic one, and here I am in China for almost 2 years now. Yeah, with a little part of exotism with the coronavirus crisis, of course.
That's an amazing story, and I'm sure a lot of people who have thought about changing careers will really respect the fact that you have actually taken that winding journey to sort of explore whether indeed teaching was what you wanted to do. I'm interested. You're in China, and I think in Shanghai. And one of our first questions is always how sort of your life been affected by the COVID situation?
So the thing is, I was in Christmas in Belgium. I was back to see the family and everything, and even at that time we could already see on some Chinese social media that something was going on. And it's only actually the 31st of December, so the 1st of January, we received some news already that there was something wrong, that there was a virus, and it was something serious. And at the time, we went back to China. So it was the 5th of January. We had 2 weeks of teaching. So yeah, when we came back to Shanghai, we knew there was something going on, and a lot of our colleagues that are Chinese were concerned because they were having family in Wuhan, they were having family also in Hubei, and the Chinese New Year was coming. So we were not really prepared of what to do. Then the 17th of January came. Everyone was on holiday for 2 weeks, and nothing was said at the time. So I went to Thailand and Cambodia, not knowing what was going on. And then the school contacted us to say, like, okay, school will be closed. We won't be back I think it was the 2nd of February. We won't be back at school. So you have to think about ways to teach online. So at the time I was on holiday, but I was already, okay, it's not holiday anymore. I have to prepare online teaching now. I have to think about what I'm going to do when I'm back. I have other teachers under me that I have to guide because I'm the head of PE. So there was like a lot of decision to take, and of course we couldn't follow the curriculum as it was. We had to change everything and do some stuff that we have never done before. I mean, I never thought one day that I would be in front of the students through a computer. For me, being a sport teacher is actually a physical experience. It's actually being in close contact, having a social interaction with the kids. And never I would have thought to give PE lessons to 100 kids in front of my computer from home. So that was like it was really like I had to change my way of thinking to be able to adapt to that situation.
Phil, that was obviously a couple of months ago. So you've done some of that teaching now online and made some changes and adjustments and learnt a lot, I assume. What would be, well, over in Australia here, we're about to go into our first term of teaching from home. So it's going to be an interesting experience. We're just at the starting point, I suppose. Is there any advice or maybe one key lesson learnt or something you do differently that you might be worth relaying to other people starting their journey?
All right. So the thing is, in China, we were the first, I mean, to be in that situation. Like, as I said earlier, I mean, the whole world looked at us like it was a car crash on the side of a motorway. So we were cast away, and no one really could help us in that situation because no one lived that kind of situation before. So in China, we were the first to teach online. So we did a lot of mistakes. And the good thing is that there was like a big PE for my domain, but for the whole domains, I think, of teaching, get together and shed a lot of information. And that's key. I mean, don't keep your good ideas for yourself. Please share as much as you can. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I mean, we are not trained to be online teachers. None of us is. None of us are YouTubers generally. I mean, some of you are, of course, but you discover a lot of different skills by doing so. The first thing I'm going to say is it's going to be super frustrating because you're not trained. You're gonna be given some apps or some programs to use that you've never used before. The kids never used before, so you're gonna have to learn really quickly how to use all these tools. And it has been, the 2 first weeks were super frustrating. It was not working properly. Kids were not responding properly. I was doing exercises that were not picked up directly by the kids. Super frustrating. I think the first thing you have to think about is the psychological effect that virus has on the population and on your kids. I mean, they are super sensible, and psychologically, the fact to stay at home without having the proper information, because obviously the Chinese don't give the proper information, but clearly the Europeans, the US or the Australian don't give the proper information. And I think the teacher is actually a good relay to give a feedback to the kids and to discuss all this matter. So more than PE, all the psychological discussion has to be there too. And so half of my PE lesson was just a discussion with the kids to see, like, hey, do you understand the problem here, you know, and what to do in that situation. So my first lesson were quite simply like, hey, wash your hands, wear a mask if you have to go out. Now you can't go out anymore. We are going to do only exercises indoor. So I had to think about a lot of exercises that you can actually not do anywhere else than at home. And maybe some of you have a house, maybe some of you have a huge apartment, but in China, I mean, I'm living in 30 square meters, and that's most of the kids are living in the same situation. So you have to think about activities that you can do at home with little material. So because you don't have a ball, you cannot throw a frisbee or whatever. So the easiest way to do PE at the beginning is, for me, in my sense, was to do some fitness. All right, some really easy fitness. Stay active. Don't forget that inactivity is really bad for you. So a lot of theory about maybe nutrition, body activation, and that kind of stuff. And of course, a lot of little physical activities. I did a lot of Tabata workshops. So it's like 4 minutes trainings that you do twice or 3 times per day. So a lot of different little activities, yeah, at the beginning.
Phil,
sorry, I talk a lot, sorry.
That's totally fine, mate. It's all interesting stuff, and I'm sure a lot of our teacher viewers and listeners are taking notes or going to replay the episode to get a few tips. You mentioned about the psychology of the students, and that's a really interesting point for me. I've got a couple of young kids and going to be trying to homeschool them themselves. But how did you see that, or how did you see your role in helping that element of kids in your role as a teacher, and did it change over time? I have this sort of impression that kids are quite adaptable and resilient, but obviously they're all different. They're all little human beings. But yeah, what's your experience with how the kids went psychologically?
They are more resilient, and they can adapt way better sometimes than the adults. It's just a different situation that they are put in, a bit like a video game, and then they just keep going. Actually, I was quite impressed by the, as you said, the resilience in that situation. The thing is, the kids are going to be stuck at home with the 2 parents, with no routine anymore. I mean, they have to have a plan, and I think school, in that term, was a really good schedule in their life. I mean, in China, so the kids had school from 9 till 4. So for example, now I just stopped I had my last hour of the day just 1 hour ago, and so the kids 6 to 7 hours per day are at school online, and I think that this kind of routine keep them also healthy more than adults that sometimes they're at home but they don't have a work anymore. They are way less active than their kids. The problem is, I mean, in China, they have the 1-child policy. So most of the family have only 1 kid. Sometimes they have 2, but it's quite rare. So having a computer for 1 kid and being able to do online teaching is all right. But if you have 2 or 3 kids and you have to work yourself, will you be able to manage that kind of situation? So I don't know. It's in China, I guess the kids were quite adapted quite well, but still there were a lot of questions about the virus and how it is going to affect their life. We don't know when the quarantine would stop. So there was like a lot of questions that we had to answer, and the problem is that even as an adult, you don't have always the answers. So it was more being to comfort them. That was important, and just be there to be a good listener, And as a teacher, for me, it's like one of their role.
I think there's something really important in this, and it brings me back to a friend of mine, Tom Bronzell, who we'll get the chance to talk to pretty soon. And he's done a lot of work with trauma-informed education. And one of the things that I've picked up from his work and the work of Berry Street is we're very quick to try to, do well-being or teach people things, right? But when you've just been through something, there has to be a period of fixing the stuff that's become dysregulated, right? Giving time for that stuff to repair first, and then you can teach people, right? Because if you're teaching people and they've gone through trauma or they've gone through something difficult, and they walk into your classroom and everything's dysregulated, there's no stability, then how can you expect them to learn? Or how can you expect them to, you know, do an exercise that builds their well-being or their health, right? And one of the things that Tom's always really kind of put out, which is counterintuitive, is rhythm. And you just talked about that. The classroom and the school creates a rhythm for people's lives, whether they know it or not. It's this regular structure that they can kind of hang everything off. And without that, you know, as a teacher, your main role is to repair that stuff that's dysregulated so then your kids can learn, right?
Totally. That was also something that is quite important at the beginning. Every teacher were going to teach their class as usual. Okay, you're going to give 1 hour, then you're going to give assignments. No. It's not possible. You are in a situation that is, I mean, the kids are at home. They have to be self-disciplined, which, you know, I'm teaching for 11 till 15 years old. Self-discipline is something that is quite complicated, even in China, and you have to manage that also, and that's going to be super frustrating because you are not there to look over their shoulder what they are doing. They are, I mean, you are trusting them to do some work, and the thing is, for most teacher that has been like, I'm a PE teacher, so I'm quite all right. But for the math or the English teacher and having the kids to do some homework, it was crazy. I mean, don't give too many assignments to your kids. Give maybe 1 assignment per week, and that's already a lot, because you're going to see that the kids they have to deal with a lot of different situations. They are not at school. They are not in a learning environment. They are at home. They have all their games. They have their video games. They have their mom, their dad, their sister, brothers that are doing a lot of different things. They have the situation. We have to do some grocery shopping. We are stressed. You can see that your parents are stressed. Don't expect it to be school. It's not. And that's why I think the response from the Chinese government was to advise us not to grade our students anymore. So now so school is going to start the 6th of May now. So we know it since a week. So for 3 months, kids had no grade. The assignments were just commented and we were giving them like advices on how to perform better, but never we were grading the students. And this time is done. I mean, we don't count it for school. So my advice here is, even as a teacher, even if you want the kids to perform because they have exams, they won't have exams. I mean, school will start in Europe, will start in September. It won't start now. So even in France, they say school is going to start the 11th of May. It's crazy. It's crazy. In China, we start the 6th of May. If you start the 11th of May, you're going to put your whole population at risk. But that's just my advice. But anyway, I'm not a politician. Don't assign too much to your kids. They are living in a stressful situation, as Kesh said. It's important to heal first, to adapt to the new situation, and then you might start to build up and up and up. But don't push them. Really, don't push them.
Phil, I think that's again great advice. It's just managing the expectations, I think, is a big job, especially at this time, and going a bit easy on yourself and easy on your kids about what can be achieved. So again, good to hear that from your experience being a couple of months in. Also really interesting, Kesh, with your comment about the coming out of the trauma. I saw a little bit on the tally last night, which reminded me about the massive bushfires we had in Australia back in early January. And it was like, man, that happened. And then we're straight into the coronavirus. Like, I think there's been a real sort of lack of, processing that as well. So I think that's sort of hanging around on people's shoulders in Australia, at least. So, and then they've been straight into the coronavirus. Phil, I just wanted to ask, it sounds as though you're saying school's resuming, you're going back to face-to-face classes, what is it, 6th of May or something like that?
Yeah.
So how is that? Sounds as though then restrictions are easing up. Life's sort of starting to get some normalcy back to it? Is that where things are at more generally in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. The 27th of April, all the schools resume for the Chinese school, and then the international schools are starting the 6th of May. Actually, we had some troubles to get some of our teachers back. Some of the teachers are still in Australia or in the UK, and they cannot come back to China anymore because China closed their borders. Which is actually, I think, is a good decision. But now for 3 weeks, China has closed their borders. For the situation here, for the quarantine and everything, so actually everything get back. I mean, people started to get back to work the 9th of February. So we only had 3 weeks of how do you say, confinement. 2 to 3 weeks of confinement in Shanghai, and then all the essential jobs started to get back with a rotation. So for example, it was like 1 person out of 3 could go back to the factory or could go back to their work, and then it started to get back and back and back up until March. And in March we started to have at the end of February, maybe March, we started to have all the bars and restaurants opening up again. I mean, restaurants were open, but they were just doing deliveries at the time. So they just started to go out and out. Actually, as a citizen, you could go in Shanghai, you could go out all the time. You could only go out once per day. And in my neighborhood, so I'm living in a compound, like a lot of people in China are living in compounds. You were checked the temperature, then you would go out. You could go to the pharmacy or to the supermarket. You had to line up in front of the pharmacy or the supermarket. That was the only 2 things open. And you had to respect 3 meters distances. You couldn't go out of your compound without a mask. Okay, face mask is mandatory. You cannot go out without it, or you just get arrested directly. And then when you enter the shop, you get your temperature checked. You get out of the shop, temperature checked. Get back to your compound. They know you, but they still check the temperature. So I think I've never known my temperature so well. And again, I mean, you go to the shop once a week. You're not going to go 3 times per day to get your Coke. Oh, I forgot the pasta, I'm going back. And that's what I see in Europe, and it's totally crazy. I mean, that makes me mad. So yeah, it's just people have been scared. People have been scared of the virus directly, and they're scared for their life, and they were scared for their parents, their grandparents, their friends. And it's for me, it's just common sense and being just empathetic, you know. And when I see Europe, it's makes me mad. Makes me mad. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to sneak in a cheeky question here about the temperature, because I've seen the videos that you were doing, some of the workout videos that you're doing for your students, and I'm interested with the whole temperature thing. Like, did you have to then wait after? Because obviously your body temperature raises when you're doing a workout. Do you then wait until you go through a temperature check, or what's the go like with that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I was always stressed out, you know, that I would get taken, you know, by their, I don't know, like police or medical staff and get put away in quarantine because I had temperature. But no, actually, no, even after cycling back home, my temperature was still below 37.3. But yeah, like a funny story. Well, not really funny, but like 3 weeks ago, I had I had really stomach ache, and I had to, at one point I had temperature. I had to go to the hospital. I was only like 37.5 or something. And yeah, you stress because you say like, damn, if that's coronavirus, I mean, I don't want to have coronavirus in China. And then, yeah, you call the hospital and they tell you like, hey, you have to check first. So you go to the hospital. In 5 minutes, they do a CT scan of your whole body and they know if you have it or not. And that's it. And so actually the test in China is just like, okay, they're going to check your nose and your mouth. In 15 minutes, it's done. And you know if you have it or not, and then you follow the treatment. And actually, again, China has been so efficient to tackle it, because whenever they have a suspicion of coronavirus, they test. And again, everyone is taking social distancing. Everyone is wearing a mask. No one is kidding with that. And that's why when I see like, oh, China is lying, maybe they are, for sure they are. Okay, I'm not going to say the opposite. They are, but Europe has way more deaths than China, for sure. For sure, they just don't. I mean, it's just a respect of the rules that is different. So yeah, in this bad event that was my hospitalization, I had to stay in the hospital for 3 days because I had appendicitis. In the end, yeah, I have been super well treated, and everything was done properly. So yeah.
I mean, just that story around testing alone, you know, like Griggsy's father-in-law was sick for a couple of weeks and they couldn't get a test. I know in Australia, to get a test is kind of, you know, rare and hard. We talked to someone from the UAE, same sort of thing. They called up, thought they might be sick, got told to stay home. So like, just the fact that, you know, they took you in for a CT scan, like that's massive. Like it's clear that countries are struggling with the resources and they don't have testing, but to have that kind of response that we're taking this extremely seriously, I don't see that in a lot of other places. Griggsy?
Yeah, but the thing is, and when you think about it, China, I mean, overall, not Shanghai. Shanghai is clearly like an advanced city, but Shanghai, China overall is a third world country. You know, I mean, US, Europe is always looking down to China. I mean, it's when you see the wet market, you know, where supposedly the coronavirus started. I mean, that's how the hygiene is. You know, it's really bad, and in the end, they are able to do that kind of response and being effective in the testing. And so again, my question is like, what were, or I mean, it's super political now, but what were our government doing for 3 months? I know since the 1st of January what happens in Wuhan. I know that something is going on, and yeah, and now we are in April, and what is the response? I mean, it's been 4 months. What have you been doing, guys? It's crazy. And I mean, I was of course I was worried for my family, and I decided end of February to send out masks to my family. And so I in one day I could use, it's called Alibaba or Taobao here. It's like the Chinese Amazon. In one day I had 500 masks delivered to my house, and China was under a shortage at the time of masks, and I still get 500 in a day at the end of the shortage. So it was beginning of March, so the shortage was the 15th of February, the shortage ends, because every industry in China that could produce masks produced masks, because it was necessary, you know. And no one questioned themselves. And even Ford in China started to do some ventilators, so it's possible.
Yeah, it's so interesting, the whole mask situation, and like we still don't have a mask here in Belgium, but yeah, we just got so tired of asking and not being able to find any. It's just like, well, there's obviously not going to be any coming anytime soon, but I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure it will eventually, but yeah, sorry, what were you going to say, Phil?
Yeah. No, yeah, in the last month, so I sent like 100 masks to my parents, then 100 masks to the rest of my family. My sisters lives in London. I sent 100 masks. Same with some friends that are doctors and nurse sorry.
That I was just going to say, all you need to do, Griggsy, is track down Phil's family in Belgium and grab some of their masks, mate.
Sounds like sounds like I might be asking Phil for a couple off air. But look, we have actually run right out of time. I can't believe how quickly our time together has gone. But thanks a lot for joining us, Phil.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And we wish you and your family all the best in the times ahead. Hope, especially being over in Europe, and we hope that that everything will end up okay for everyone there. I was just going to say thanks to everyone for joining us, and we hope that you've enjoyed this chat. If you would like to share, like, or subscribe, that'd be fantastic. But in the meantime, you stay healthy, world.